Give me 30 days, and I'll give you a new life. That's not a figure of speech, that's law. If you repeat what I'm about to teach you for just 30 days straight, your subconscious will accept it as truth, and your outer world will have no choice but to reflect it. For some, that will mean unexpected money. For others, healing. For others still, peace of mind where there was only worry. 30 days, that's all it takes. In this message, I will give you the exact spiritual conditioning formula that can change your life in just 30 days. You'll learn how to impress your subconscious with faith, gratitude, and wealth consciousness so deeply that your outer world must obey. If you've struggled for years with the same problems, money, worries, anxiety, loneliness, this will show you how to dissolve them and replace them with abundance, peace, and joy. Stay with me, and by the end you'll hold in your hands a practice that has changed thousands of lives and will change yours if you use it. Maybe you've tried affirmations before. Maybe you've read the books, repeated the phrases, even prayed, but nothing seemed to change. You wonder why others prosper while you struggle. You start to think maybe it just doesn't work for you. That frustration is real, and I understand it. But here's what you were never told. The subconscious doesn't respond to what you do once, it responds to what you repeat daily until it feels real. That's the missing piece. This is why so many fail, and why this 30-day formula works. Because it conditions your mind the same way you'd condition your body, with consistency, repetition, and faith. So here's what we'll do together over these 3 hours. First, I'll show you why the subconscious accepts repetition as truth, and why 30 days is the perfect period to reprogram your mind. Then, I'll reveal the exact daily practice, the affirmations, the visualization, the gratitude, ritual that make up the spiritual conditioning formula. Finally, I'll show you how to sustain this change long after the 30 days, so that abundance, peace, and joy become your natural way of life. And along the way, I'll share the secrets most people never hear: why missing just one day can weaken the process, why gratitude is more powerful than willpower, and why your subconscious only accepts what feels true, not what you merely wish. If you stay with me, you'll see how 30 days of faith can erase 30 years of struggle. Here's something most people completely miss, and it may surprise you when you first hear it. Change doesn't happen because of a single moment of inspiration, and it doesn't happen just because you said the right words once. Change happens because the subconscious mind responds to what is repeated, consistently, until it becomes law within you. That's why 30 days is so powerful. It's not a random number. 30 days is enough to impress the subconscious, to carve a new groove into the mind so that it accepts a new belief as natural, automatic, and inevitable. Less than that, and the old programming still holds too much sway. More than that, and yes, the habit grows stronger, but 30 days is the threshold where the shift begins to lock in. Think about a record player. The needle follows the groove again and again, and the more it runs through that groove, the deeper it becomes, until the sound is clear and steady. Your subconscious is the same way. Every time you repeat a thought, every time you say an affirmation, every time you visualize with feeling, you're carving a groove. At first, it may feel faint, like scratching the surface, but keep at it day after day, and the groove deepens. The subconscious begins to accept it as the only path, the only song, and your life begins to play that melody automatically. That's what 30 days does. It deepens the groove so that the subconscious cannot help but follow it. Now, some people ask, "But Joseph, why every single day? Can't I just do it when I feel like it?" Let me answer with a picture. Imagine a farmer who waters his seeds one day, then forgets for 3 days, then waters again, then stops for a week. What happens? The seeds dry out. The growth is stunted. The harvest never comes. Consistency is what brings life. The subconscious is soil, and if you want a new harvest, you must water it daily. That's why missing even one day weakens the process. It's not that the law stops working. It's that you stop supplying the soil with nourishment. Here's the why. 30 days works Because it takes time to dissolve the old program. Most people have been rehearsing the opposite belief for years. They've been telling themselves for decades, I'm poor. I'm unlucky. I'm anxious. I'll never change. That's 30 years of negative repetition. So when you first start, you're planting a new seed in a field already full of weeds. You can't just toss one seed in and walk away. You must keep planting, keep watering, keep pulling out weeds. 30 days gives you the momentum to push past resistance and begin a new harvest. Here's the what. 30 days of daily conditioning, affirmation, visualization, gratitude is enough to begin rewriting the subconscious script. Each day you repeat, you're chiseling away at the old image and building the new. By the end of 30 days, you'll notice the difference. The anxiety feels lighter. The faith feels stronger. The new thought doesn't feel foreign anymore. It feels like you. And here's the how. You commit to a daily practice, no matter how small. 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes at night, simple words, vivid images, heartfelt gratitude. That's all. Not hours of strain, not endless rituals, just faithful daily conditioning. Think of it like physical exercise. One workout won't change your body, but 30 days straight begins to reshape you. The mind works the same way. So, what's the point? I want you to feel deep in your heart right now. It's this. 30 days is not magic, but it is law. It is the length of time your subconscious needs to accept a new belief as truth. If you give me 30 days, if you give yourself 30 days, you will begin to see change, not because of luck, not because of chance, but because of law. Transition. And now that you see why 30 days is so powerful, the next question is, how do we use those days wisely? Because words alone aren't enough. It's not just what you say, it's how you say it, and what you feel when you say it. Let's explore the power of emotional repetition. Here's the next thing you must understand. And it may seem almost too simple, but it is the difference between success and failure. Words alone will not change your life. You can repeat phrases 1,000 times, you can say affirmations until your lips are dry, but if those words are empty, if they carry no feeling, they will fall on barren soil. The subconscious does not respond to words. As words, it responds to words clothed in emotion. It is not the sound of your voice that matters. It is the vibration behind the sound, the feeling you pour into it, the conviction with which you say it. A dry repetition is like scattering seeds on stone, but a word charged with feeling is like planting seeds in rich, moist soil. It takes root, it grows, it bears fruit. Think about how you remember events in your life. Do you remember the routine, ordinary days? Most of them fade. But you remember the days of strong emotion, the joy of victory, the sorrow of loss, the thrill of love, the sting of betrayal. Why? Because emotion imprints. It carves the memory deep into the subconscious. The same law applies to affirmations and repetition. Say it without feeling, and it barely registers. Say it with gratitude, with love, with expectancy, and it burns itself into the subconscious like a brand. That is why gratitude is so powerful. It is not just polite manners. It is emotion in its highest form. Gratitude says, "It is done, it is mine, I already have it." And when the subconscious hears that feeling, it accepts the suggestion as law. I once knew a woman who repeated affirmations every morning. I am healthy, I am wealthy, I am happy. But she said them like a grocery list, flat, mechanical, lifeless. Nothing changed. Then, one day, I told her, stop saying the words, and start feeling them. See the picture. Imagine yourself already there. Feel the joy of it, as if it is happening now. She began to do it differently. Instead of repeating, I am healthy, with no emotion, she closed her eyes, pictured herself walking in the sunlight, breathing deeply, laughing with friends, and then she said, I am healthy, and tears of gratitude filled her eyes. Within weeks, her body began to heal. What made the difference? Not the words themselves, but the feeling behind them. Murphy often said that when you pray, you must believe you have received, and give thanks for it as though it were already done. This is emotional repetition. It is not begging for something to come someday. It is rejoicing as though it is already yours. When you repeat in this way, the subconscious does not argue, it does not delay, it accepts the feeling and begins to manifest it. That is why patients in Murphy's stories were healed, not by the exact phrases they used, but by the emotion they poured into them. One man did not simply deny pain by saying, "I am well." He felt the relief of healing. He accepted the idea that it is passing away, and his subconscious obeyed. Now let me ask you, what have you been repeating emotionally? For repetition works both ways. Worry is repetition. Fear is repetition. Every time you rehearse disaster in your mind, every time you dwell on sickness, every time you say, "I can't do this," with feeling, you are planting seeds. And because fear carries strong emotion, the subconscious accepts it quickly. That is why worry produces results, so often it is prayer in reverse. So you must take this same law and turn it to your good. Instead of repeating fear, repeat faith. Instead of rehearsing failure, rehearse success. And above all, do it with feeling. Here is the law: repetition impresses but emotion seals. If you repeat without feeling, the seed may be planted but it will not sprout. If you repeat with feeling, the subconscious will accept it as reality. So the next time you affirm wealth, do not just say the words, feel the joy of freedom, the relief of bills paid, the thrill of giving generously. The next time you affirm health, feel the strength in your body, the ease in your breath, the delight of vitality. The next time you affirm peace, feel the calm, the stillness, the rest. Let the emotion be real, and the subconscious will take it as law. Transition. And yet, as powerful as repetition is, we must also face the truth that it cuts both ways. For just as positive words with feeling create abundance, negative words with fear create lack. Let us now uncover the danger of negative repetition. Here is something most people overlook, and it may shock you when you first realize it. You are already practicing repetition every single day. You are already conditioning your subconscious. The question is not whether you are conditioning it, but with what. For repetition works in both directions. It can bring abundance, or it can bring lack. It can bring health, or it can bring sickness. It can build faith, or it can build fear. And the great tragedy is that most people are practicing negative repetition without even knowing it. They are rehearsing failure. They are affirming poverty. They are visualizing disaster. They call it worry. They call it being realistic. They call it just the way things are. But the subconscious doesn't care what they call it. It only knows that repetition plus emotion equals law. Think about how often a man says, "I can't afford that." He says it every week, maybe every day. Each time, the words sink into his subconscious like a command. "I can't afford it." And the subconscious, faithful as always, arranges his life so that he cannot afford it. Another person says, "Nothing ever works out for me." She repeats it after every setback. Soon it becomes a mantra, a creed. The subconscious accepts it, and life begins to reflect it. Failure after failure, disappointment after disappointment, not because she is cursed, but because she is repeating a curse of her own making. Negative repetition is powerful because it often comes with strong emotion. Worry is not a dry thought, it is a thought soaked in fear. Anger is not a casual word, it is a word charged with fire. Resentment is not a passing feeling, it is a wound rehearsed again and again. And the subconscious, like soil, accepts these seeds, waters them with your emotion, and produces a harvest to match. This is why so many people feel trapped in cycles of failure. They have conditioned their minds daily, faithfully, diligently, but with the wrong material. They have been faithful to fear instead of faithful to faith. Let me give you an image. Imagine an actor rehearsing a play. Night after night, he repeats his lines until they become second nature. When the curtain rises, he does not even have to think, the words flow automatically. Your subconscious is the same. Whatever lines you rehearse, it will perform. If you rehearse lack, it will perform lack. If you rehearse sickness, it will perform sickness. If you rehearse failure, it will perform failure. And the performance will be so natural, you may even think it was fate. But it was not fate, it was rehearsal. I once spoke with a man who constantly worried about losing his job. Every day, he said to himself, "One of these days, they're going to fire me." He pictured himself packing up his desk, walking out with a box in his hands, telling his family the bad news. He rehearsed it with such vividness that when the day finally came and he was let go, he said, "See, I knew it." But he did not know it, he created it. He had been praying for it with negative repetition. His subconscious had simply carried out the command. Do you see how dangerous this is? The law of repetition is neutral. It will work with whatever you give it. If you give it fear, it produces fear. If you give it faith, it produces faith. If you give it doubt, it produces doubt. If you give it gratitude, it produces gratitude. The law does not judge. It does not argue. It does not stop to say, this is good, this is bad. It only obeys. That is why you must guard your words, your thoughts, your images, especially those you repeat. For every repetition is a seed, and every seed brings a harvest. So let me ask you, what have you been repeating lately? What words do you speak most often? What pictures do you dwell on daily? Are you planting weeds, or are you planting roses? For the soil will grow both with equal faithfulness. The only difference is in the harvest you receive. And here is the good news. Just as negative repetition can be replaced, so can the harvest. If you have been rehearsing failure, you can begin rehearsing success. If you have been affirming lack, you can begin affirming abundance. If you have been visualizing sickness, you can begin visualizing health. The soil does not care, it will grow, whatever seed you give it. That is why 30 days of deliberate repetition is so powerful, because it interrupts the old cycle and establishes the new. Transition. So now that you see the danger of negative repetition, and the power of positive repetition, the natural question arises, what exactly should we be repeating, and how do we repeat it in a way that guarantees results? That is where we come to the spiritual conditioning formula itself: affirmations, visualization, and gratitude. Now that we've seen how repetition shapes destiny, both for good and for ill, we must look at the first great tool of the spiritual conditioning formula: affirmations. But I must tell you plainly, not all affirmations are equal. Some work, and some fall flat. Why? Because an affirmation that sticks to the subconscious has certain qualities. It is simple, it is short, it is clear, and it is spoken with feeling. The subconscious does not understand long speeches or complex arguments. It does not reason the way your conscious mind does. It responds to impressions, to pictures, to emotions. That is why the most powerful affirmations are often just a few words, repeated consistently, charged with conviction. Murphy himself often recommended phrases like wealth, success, spoken several times a day, especially in the quiet moments before sleep and after waking. 2 words, but when spoken with faith, they carry more power than 1,000 sentences spoken mechanically. Think of affirmation as writing a command into the blueprint of the subconscious. If you keep the command simple, it is accepted quickly. If you make it complicated, the subconscious hesitates. That is why so many people fail when they try to write long, flowery affirmations that they don't even believe themselves. The subconscious rejects what feels forced. But a short phrase, spoken with sincerity, repeated daily, is like a hammer striking the same spot on a stone. One strike may do nothing, but strike again and again in the same place, and the stone will crack. The old program of poverty and fear will break, and the new belief will take its place. Let me give you an example. Murphy once told the story of a young salesgirl who could not make sales. Every time she approached a customer, she felt weak, unworthy, convinced they would not listen. And of course, her subconscious programmed with failure, carried out that belief. Then she began to affirm, I am successful. I am worthy. She repeated it daily, morning and night, until the words began to feel real. At first, she resisted. The old voice whispered, this isn't true. But she persisted. Slowly, the subconscious accepted the new command. Her attitude changed. Her voice grew confident. Her customers responded. Soon, her sales increased, and her whole life turned around. What changed? Not the market, not the customers, but the inner program. She wrote a new command into her subconscious with affirmation. Now, here's the WHY. Affirmations work because the subconscious is impressionable. It accepts repeated ideas as facts, especially when spoken with emotion. The subconscious doesn't know the difference between truth and lie. It only knows what is repeated and believed. That's why negative affirmations like, I can't do this, or I'll never succeed, are so dangerous. They are commands. But the same law works for your good when you reverse it. Here's the what. Affirmations that stick are short, positive, present tense, and emotional. Not, I will be wealthy, which places the good in the future, but, I am wealthy now, which places it in the present. Not, I want peace, which declares lack, but I am peace, which declares possession. The subconscious responds to I am because it is identity. It hears I am and says, so be it. And here's the how. Speak your affirmations daily, especially in the drowsy state before sleep and after waking, when the subconscious is most open. Speak them slowly, with feeling, as though they are already true. Repeat them until the words sink below the surface and become natural. Do not force belief, let it grow. At first, it may feel strange, but persistence is the key. 30 days of consistent affirmation will begin to shift the subconscious, and the shift within will soon be reflected without. So ask yourself now, what command are you writing on your mind each day? Are you saying, I am tired, I am broke, I am unlucky? If so, change the command. Begin today with something simple. I am wealthy, I am peace, I am success. Speak it, feel it, repeat it, and watch as your subconscious accepts it as law. Transition. And yet words alone, even when simple and powerful, are only one half of the formula. The subconscious also speaks in images, in pictures, in visions. To complete the conditioning, we must not only affirm with words, but also see with imagination. That is the work of visualization. Now that we have spoken of affirmations, the power of words repeated with feeling, we must turn to the second great pillar of the spiritual conditioning formula, visualization. For while words are powerful, words alone are not the natural language of the subconscious. The subconscious speaks in pictures. It dreams in images, it accepts symbols, it acts on visions. That is why a single vivid mental picture can do more to reprogram the mind than hours of lifeless repetition. When you imagine with intensity, when you see yourself already in possession of the good you desire, you are not pretending you are impressing. You are giving your subconscious a blueprint, and the subconscious, faithful and obedient, begins to build the outer reality to match that inner design. Think for a moment about how worry works. Worry is nothing more than visualization in reverse. A man imagines himself losing his job, and he pictures the shame, the struggle, the despair. He rehearses it in his mind again and again until he feels it in his body, and then the subconscious, taking that picture as a command, moves events to bring it about. Another woman imagines her body breaking down, imagines disease spreading, imagines herself in weakness, and her subconscious responds by creating symptoms that mirror the vision. Do you see? Worry is visualization of what you don't want, carried out faithfully by the subconscious. The same law, used positively, becomes your path to healing, abundance, and peace. Murphy often shared the story of when he wanted to sell his house. He didn't chase buyers frantically, he didn't beg or plead. Instead, he went into his imagination and pictured a bold sold sign standing in front of the property. He saw it clearly, felt the relief, the joy, the certainty of the sale. and soon after, the buyer appeared, and the house was sold. What happened? The subconscious accepted the picture, and moved to fulfill it. That is the law. Whatever image you consistently hold, with faith and emotion, must eventually show itself in the outer world. Here is the why. Visualization works because the subconscious cannot tell the difference between a vividly imagined picture and a real experience. If you imagine yourself giving a speech, your heart may race, your palms may sweat, your body responds as if it were real. The subconscious does not say, "This is only imagination." It accepts the image as fact and sets the body and circumstances in line with it. That is why athletes rehearse their performance mentally. Why great musicians imagine the concert before stepping on stage. Why successful men and women live the end result in their minds before they see it outwardly. The mind rehearses, the subconscious accepts, the body and world follow. Here is the what. Visualization is the practice of seeing the desired result as already complete. Not someday in the future, but now. Not "I will be healthy," but "I see myself walking strong, laughing, free." Not "I hope to be wealthy," but "I see myself giving, enjoying, free of debt." Not "I want peace," but "I see myself calm, smiling, resting in serenity." The key is to live in the end, to picture the result as though it has already happened. And here is the how. Find a quiet place, close your eyes, and enter the drowsy state, the relaxed condition between waking and sleep. In this state, the conscious mind is quiet, and the subconscious is open. Then, form a clear picture of your desired outcome. Add detail, see the colors, hear the sounds, feel the textures. Imagine yourself inside the picture, not watching from afar, but living it. Feel the joy, the gratitude, the relief, as though it is real. Do not strain, do not beg. Simply imagine it until the feeling grows. Repeat this daily for 30 days, and the subconscious will accept the image as reality. Once accepted, the law of life will bring it into expression. So ask yourself, what pictures have you been living in your mind? Are you rehearsing failure or success? Are you picturing lack or abundance? Are you seeing yourself weak or strong? Whatever picture you hold, your subconscious will build. Change the picture, and you change the outcome. It is that simple, and that profound. Transition. And yet, as powerful as visualization is, there is one element that seals it, that tells the subconscious the prayer is already answered, that the picture is already true. That element is gratitude, the signal of completion. Now we come to the third element of the spiritual conditioning formula, and it is the one that seals the work of the other two. Affirmation plants the seed, visualization paints the picture, but gratitude is the signal to the subconscious that the prayer is finished, that the seed is already sprouting, that the picture is already real. Gratitude is not merely good manners. Gratitude is a spiritual vibration, a mental atmosphere, a law of completion. When you give thanks in advance, you are telling your subconscious, "This is already mine." And the subconscious, hearing that vibration, accepts it as fact and begins to align your outer life to match it. Gratitude does not wait until the good appears. It brings the good into being by declaring it already done. Think about how strange it would be for a farmer to plant a seed and then doubt every day whether it will grow. A wise farmer trusts the process. He waters the seed, tends the soil, and gives thanks for the harvest long before it appears. Gratitude is that same trust applied to the mind. It is saying, "The law is working. The harvest is certain. I thank you now." This attitude of gratitude creates peace within, and peace is the soil in which prosperity grows. Doubt creates tension. Fear creates resistance. But gratitude relaxes the mind and opens the channels of supply. Murphy often taught people to end their affirmations with gratitude. If you affirm, "I am wealthy, wealth flows to me now," then add, "I give thanks for this abundance." That final phrase transforms the affirmation from a wish into a reality. Why? Because the subconscious hears gratitude, as proof that you already believe. Gratitude is not hoping, it is knowing. Gratitude is not reaching, it is receiving. And once the subconscious accepts that feeling of receiving, the outer result cannot be delayed. I once knew a man who prayed daily for money, but he always prayed with desperation. His words were full of lack. God, please send me money, I need it. I don't know how I'll survive. His subconscious only heard the vibration of lack, and so his lack continued. When he learned to change his approach, to begin saying, "Thank you, Father, that money flows to me now. Thank you that all my needs are met. Thank you that abundance is mine already," everything shifted. At first he felt he was pretending, but he persisted. He kept thanking, day after day. Soon, small blessings began to appear: a bill paid unexpectedly, a gift, a new opportunity. Then larger blessings followed. What changed? Not the world, but his inner state. Gratitude had replaced desperation, and the subconscious responded accordingly. And here is another truth. Gratitude dissolves fear and resentment. You cannot be grateful and fearful at the same time. You cannot be grateful and resentful at the same time. Gratitude lifts you to a higher vibration, where faith feels natural, where abundance feels certain. It clears the soil of poisons and fills it with life. That is why daily gratitude, even for the simplest things, is so transformative. Thank you for breath. Thank you for sunlight. Thank you for love. Thank you for wealth flowing now. These words create an atmosphere in which prosperity cannot help but grow. So, here is the WHY. Gratitude works because it signals completion. It tells the subconscious that the seed is already planted and the harvest is assured. Here is the what. Gratitude must be practiced daily, not just when something good happens, but in advance, before the evidence appears. And here is the how. Build gratitude into your practice. Write it in a journal. Speak it aloud in prayer. Whisper it in your heart throughout the day. When you affirm, add thanks. When you visualize, add thanks. When you wake in the morning, give thanks. When you close your eyes at night, give thanks. The more you do this, the more natural it becomes. Soon, gratitude becomes your atmosphere, your state of being. And when gratitude is your state, prosperity is your experience. Because the subconscious has no choice but to bring you more of what you are constantly thanking for. Transition. So now we have words to command, images to shape, and gratitude to seal. But when is the best time to do this work? When is the subconscious most open, most receptive, most ready to accept new truth? That is what we must explore next, the drowsy state advantage. Now that we have seen how affirmation plants the seed, visualization shapes the picture, and gratitude seals the prayer, we must ask an important question: when is the best time to do this work? When is the subconscious most open, most fertile, most ready to accept the impressions we offer? The answer is simple, but it is profound. The subconscious is most receptive in the moments just before sleep and just after waking, when the mind is drowsy, relaxed, quiet, and the boundary between the conscious and the subconscious is thin. In those moments you can impress your desires on the deeper mind with far less effort, and the suggestions sink in quickly and deeply, taking root almost immediately. That is why Murphy called this the drowsy state advantage, and it is why so many who have practiced this method report results that feel almost miraculous. Think about what usually happens as people drift off to sleep. They lie in bed replaying the day's troubles, rehearsing arguments, worrying about bills, fearing tomorrow. And what are they doing in that state? They are planting those very images directly into the subconscious, which works on them all night long. No wonder they wake up anxious. No wonder they carry the same burdens day after day. The soil is fertile, but they are planting weeds. Yet the same law that produces weeds will produce roses if you give it roses. Instead of feeding your subconscious with fear, you can feed it with faith. Instead of replaying problems, you can replay solutions. Instead of rehearsing lack, you can rehearse abundance. And if you do this in the drowsy state, the results will come far faster because the subconscious receives the suggestion without argument. Murphy told the story of a singer who was crippled with stage fright. No amount of practice during the day could help her because her conscious mind was filled with fear. But at night, as she drifted toward sleep, she began to picture herself on stage, singing with confidence, hearing the applause, bowing with joy. She repeated this nightly, in the drowsy state, until the subconscious accepted it. When the time came to perform, the fear was gone. The subconscious had replaced the old program with a new one. That is the power of the drowsy state. Here is the WHY. The conscious mind, with all its doubts and arguments, grows quiet in the drowsy state. The gatekeeper relaxes. The subconscious, always listening, becomes more open. What you whisper to yourself in that moment bypasses resistance and is accepted as truth. Here is the what. You must use those moments to impress the ideas you want most deeply rooted, your affirmations, your visualizations, your gratitude. And here is the how. As you lie in bed before sleep, close your eyes and gently repeat your affirmation. See the picture of your desire as already fulfilled. Feel gratitude as though it is already done. Do not strain. Do not force. Let it be gentle, like a lullaby to your mind. Drift into sleep with that feeling, and the subconscious will work on it all night long. Do the same in the morning, before your conscious mind fills with the noise of the day. Spend just a few minutes planting the seed, and you will carry that vibration with you for hours. I once knew a man who had been plagued with worry for years. He lay awake every night rehearsing disasters, losing his job, falling ill, failing his family. His subconscious was saturated with fear. When he learned this method, he replaced the fear with faith. Each night before sleep he affirmed, "I am safe, I am prospered, I am free." He pictured himself happy, surrounded by love, living in abundance. At first, it felt strange, because fear had been his habit. But he persisted. After 30 days, he noticed he slept more peacefully. His anxiety began to fade. Within months, new opportunities appeared. His finances improved. His health lifted. What changed? Not the world, but the soil of his subconscious, and it was changed by what he planted in the drowsy state. So I ask you, what are you feeding your mind in those sacred moments before sleep and after waking? Are you pouring poison into the soil? Or are you planting roses? For the law does not rest. The subconscious works day and night. You cannot stop it from working, but you can direct what it works on. Give it fear, and it will multiply fear. Give it faith, and it will multiply faith. The choice is always yours, and the drowsy state is your greatest opportunity. Transition. And now that we have seen the power of words, the force of images, the seal of gratitude, and the timing of the drowsy state, we must bring them together into one unified practice. This is the formula itself, layered and complete, simple enough to do in minutes, powerful enough to transform your life in 30 days. Now that we have walked through each element, the spoken word of affirmation, the living picture of visualization, the seal of gratitude, and the gateway of the drowsy state, we must now bring them together into one whole practice, a formula that is simple enough to be done in a few minutes each day, and yet so powerful that 30 days of faithful application can reshape the entire course of your life. This is the spiritual conditioning formula, and it works not because of chance, not because of luck, but because it follows law. Just as exercise conditions the body through repetition, this practice conditions the mind, and when the mind is conditioned, the body, the circumstances, the opportunities of life cannot help but follow. Think of it as layering, like building a house. The foundation is affirmation, short, simple words spoken with faith. This is the first layer, the command given to the subconscious. On that foundation, you build the walls through visualization, seeing the finished result as already complete, living inside the picture with all your senses. Then you place the roof through gratitude, sealing the practice by declaring that the work is done, thanking for it as though it were already received. And finally, you choose the right time to build in the drowsy state, when the subconscious is most open, most receptive, most ready to accept the new design. Each part is important, but together they form a structure so strong that the old program cannot stand against it. Here is how you practice. In the morning, before the noise of the Philo-Viscere world enters your mind, take just 5 minutes. Sit quietly. Close your eyes. Speak your affirmation slowly, with feeling. I am wealthy. I am peace. I am successful. I am love. Keep it short, simple, and clear. Then, see the picture yourself living the life you desire. Picture it as if it is happening now. Let yourself feel the joy of it, the gratitude of it, the relief of it. And as you feel, whisper, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Then rise and carry that vibration into your day. In the evening, as you drift into sleep, repeat the process. Affirm again. Picture again. Feel again. Give thanks again. Let the last impression on your mind be the seed you want the subconscious to work on all night, that is all. 10 to 15 minutes daily, faithfully repeated for 30 days, and the soil of your mind will be transformed. I once counseled a woman who said she had no time for such practices. She worked long hours, cared for her children, and by night she was exhausted. But I told her, "Give me 5 minutes in the morning and 5 minutes at night." She agreed. At first, she thought it was too little to make a difference. But she practiced anyway. She affirmed wealth. She visualized peace. She gave thanks. Within a few weeks, she noticed a lightness in her spirit. Soon after, she received an unexpected promotion. Then, opportunities began to flow to her. She said, "It's as if the world has shifted." But the world had not shifted, her subconscious had, and the outer life simply mirrored the inner. The power of this formula is not in its length but in its consistency. You do not need hours of meditation. You do not need endless rituals. You need simple, consistent conditioning. Just as brushing your teeth daily keeps them clean, this mental brushing keeps the subconscious clear of weeds and filled with seeds of abundance. It is the daily discipline, the quiet faithfulness, that produces results. So here is the WHY. Layering the elements creates a complete practice that covers every channel through which the subconscious is impressed: word, image, feeling, and timing. Here is the what. 10 to 15 minutes daily of affirmation, visualization, gratitude, practiced especially in the drowsy state. And here is the how. Commit to 30 days straight, without skipping, without wavering, and trust the process. The results may begin subtly: peace, calm, small synchronicities, but they will grow, and soon the harvest will be undeniable. So I ask you now, can you give yourself 15 minutes a day for 30 days? Can you invest this small time to unlock a lifetime of abundance? For the law is certain. The soil is ready. The seed is waiting. All that is required is your daily practice. Transition. And yet, even with such a simple and powerful formula, many still fail. Why? Because hidden poisons, envy, resentment, fear, guilt choke out the new growth. Before we can see the harvest, we must remove the poisons. Let us uncover them now. Now that we have laid the foundation of the spiritual conditioning formula, we must address a problem that ruins more gardens of the mind than almost anything else. For you may affirm faithfully, you may visualize with feeling, you may give thanks with sincerity, but if there is poison in the soil, the seed cannot grow. And one of the most common poisons is envy. Envy is not simply a fleeting thought of comparison. It is a vibration of lack, a declaration of scarcity, a signal to the subconscious that says, "There is not enough for me." When you look at the wealth of another and feel bitterness, when you see someone succeed and you resent it, when you hear of someone's blessings and you sigh, "Why them and not me?" you are poisoning your own soil. The subconscious, impartial as always, hears the resentment, feels the bitterness, and interprets it as your command: "Keep wealth away from me." And so, No matter how diligently you affirm or visualize, the harvest is strangled, because envy has shut the door. Murphy often warned that envy places you in a negative position. He explained that to resent another's success is to affirm lack for yourself. The subconscious does not differentiate between your feelings toward another and your feelings toward yourself. If you bless another's success, you are affirming success for yourself. If you curse another's prosperity, you are cursing your own. For the law always returns to you what you impress upon it, regardless of where you think you aimed it. Envy, then, is a boomerang. You throw it at another, but it circles back and strikes you. I once knew a man who could never seem to prosper. Every time a friend bought a new car, he muttered under his breath, "He doesn't deserve it." Every time a colleague received a promotion, he fumed, "Some people have all the luck." He thought he was only criticizing them, but in truth he was cursing himself. His subconscious was recording every bitter word as a command. I do not deserve prosperity. I repel success. His life reflected it. Doors closed, money slipped away, and bitterness deepened. When he finally learned the truth, I told him, instead of cursing, start blessing. Every time you see someone prosper, say quietly, "I am grateful for their success, and mine is on the way." At first it felt false to him, because envy had been his habit for years, but he persisted. Slowly, his inner state shifted. The bitterness softened, gratitude grew, and soon, opportunities began to flow his way. The law had not changed, he had. Here is the why. Envy blocks prosperity because it impresses scarcity on the subconscious. Here is the what. To reverse envy, you must bless. You must rejoice. You must be glad for the good of others, as though it were your own. And here is the how. Every time you see someone prosper, instead of shrinking with resentment, affirm silently, "I rejoice in their success. I bless their wealth. I give thanks that abundance is flowing to me also." This simple practice transforms poison into fertilizer. For what you bless, you draw near, and what you resent, you repel. Think of the farmer again. Imagine him looking at his neighbor's field, green with harvest, and cursing it. Does that curse help his own field grow? Of course not. His curse does nothing but sour his own soil. But if he looks at the same field and says, "How wonderful! The law is working. My field will produce too." His own soil is enriched by his faith. Envy chokes. Blessing nourishes. The choice is always yours. So I say to you now, never envy the wealth, the health, the joy of another. Celebrate it. Let their prosperity be proof that the law works. Let their blessing be evidence that yours is on the way. For when you bless abundance, you attract it, and when you resent it, you shut it out. Transition. But envy is only the first poison. There is another just as destructive, that binds the heart to the past and fills the soil of the subconscious with bitterness. It is the poison of resentment. Let us now uncover how resentment blocks your good, and how forgiveness can set you free. If envy poisons the soil by declaring lack, then resentment poisons the soil by binding you to the past. Resentment is the refusal to release. It is the clenching of the fist, the tightening of the jaw, the inner vow that says, "I will never forgive what was done to me." And while resentment pretends to punish the other, in truth it punishes only you. For the subconscious, ever listening, ever faithful, does not ask who the bitterness is directed toward. It simply accepts bitterness as your state and then reproduces it in your life. Resentment is like drinking poison and waiting for someone else to die. It eats at your peace, it corrodes your joy, it blocks your prosperity. And as long as it remains, no amount of affirmation or visualization can take deep root, because the soil is sour. Murphy often told the story of a man who suffered from cancer, and when he spoke with him, he discovered that this man had carried hatred toward a family member for years. Every day he replayed the betrayal. Every day he rehearsed the wound, until the resentment became part of his very being. Murphy explained that unless he released this bitterness, Unless he forgave, his subconscious would continue to reproduce the poison in his body. At first the man resisted. Forgiveness felt impossible, but slowly, he began to imagine himself shaking hands with his relative, wishing him well, blessing him, letting go. He repeated this visualization daily, especially in the drowsy state, until the feeling of forgiveness grew real. And as he released the resentment, his health improved, his body began to heal, and he lived far longer than doctors had expected. Forgiveness had freed him not just spiritually, but physically. Here is the why. Resentment blocks abundance because it chains your mind to the injury. You cannot move forward while you are looking backward. The subconscious does not argue with the picture you give it, it only reproduces it. If you keep replaying the wrong done to you, the subconscious accepts that wrong as your reality and keeps producing similar experiences. That is why people who live in resentment often find themselves in cycle after cycle of betrayal and disappointment. The law is impartial. It gives you what you dwell upon. Here is the what. To break resentment, you must forgive. And let me be clear. Forgiveness does not mean approving of the wrong, nor excusing it, nor pretending it never happened. Forgiveness means releasing it from your mind, letting it go so that it no longer controls you. It means saying, "This no longer has power over me." Forgiveness is freedom, and freedom is the atmosphere in which prosperity grows. Here is the how. Daily, especially before sleep, affirm and visualize forgiveness. Say, "I fully and freely forgive everyone, and I go free." Repeat it until the words sink in. Picture the person you resent surrounded by light, blessed, at peace, and imagine yourself smiling, free, released. At first it may feel false, but persistence will turn it real. And when the subconscious accepts it, you will feel a weight lift from your heart. Doors will open that were once shut. Peace will return. Abundance will flow. For forgiveness clears the channel through which life blesses you. I once knew a woman who carried bitterness against her ex-husband for years. She thought she was punishing him with her anger, but in truth, she was punishing herself. Every relationship she entered soured. Every business venture failed. When she finally decided to forgive not for him, but for herself, everything shifted. She began to affirm daily, "I forgive. I release. I am free." She visualized him happy and blessed, and herself joyful and light. Within months, her new business prospered, her health improved, and love returned to her life. What changed? Not the man she resented, but the soil of her subconscious. So I ask you, whom are you still holding in your heart with bitterness? Who lives rent-free in your mind, poisoning your peace? Whoever they are, let them go, release them, bless them, forgive them. For as long as you carry resentment, you are locking yourself out of the abundance that is your birthright. But when you forgive, the locks fall away, the channels open, and prosperity flows freely again. Transition. And yet resentment is not the only poison. There is another, darker still, that paints terrifying pictures on the mind, paralyzes action, and plants weeds that grow into disaster. It is the poison of fear. Let us uncover its grip and learn how to turn it into faith. Fear is perhaps the most crippling poison of them all, for it not only clouds the mind and drains the body, but it also paints images on the screen of the subconscious that the law of belief then brings into being. Fear is faith inverted. Faith says, "All things are working together for my good." Fear whispers, "Everything is turning against me." Faith sees the desired outcome and expects it. Fear sees the dreaded outcome and rehearses it. And because the subconscious does not argue, it simply accepts what you impress upon it. Fear becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The man who constantly fears sickness finds sickness at his door. The woman who constantly fears poverty finds her purse empty. The one who fears betrayal often lives in a cycle of broken trust. Fear plants the seed, waters it with emotion, and the subconscious, obedient as always, brings the harvest. Think about how vivid fear can be. A man lying awake at night imagines losing his job. He sees himself packing a box, walking out of the building, telling his family the bad news. He hears the conversations in his mind, feels the anxiety in his body. His heart races as though it were real. And the subconscious, which cannot distinguish between imagined and actual experience, accepts it as truth and begins to align circumstances toward that outcome. Another woman fears illness. She pictures herself frail, weak, confined. She rehearses the pain in her imagination until her body responds with symptoms that mirror the vision. She may call it fate, but it is law. She has been praying negatively, conditioning her subconscious for the very thing she dreads. Murphy often explained that the imagination is neutral. It will grow roses or weeds depending on what you plant. Fear is simply imagination used destructively. It is like a gardener who waters weeds every day and then wonders why the flowers wither. The weeds grow stronger not because the soil is cursed, but because they are fed. And in the same way, fear thrives on attention. The more you feed it with thought and feeling, the larger it becomes. But the moment you turn away and begin to plant faith instead, the weeds wither and the flowers bloom. Here is the WHY. Fear blocks prosperity because it plants pictures of failure that the subconscious accepts as orders. Here is the what. To overcome fear, you must replace it, not resist it. Fighting fear only feeds it, because what you fight, you focus on. But replacing fear with faith starves it, because the subconscious cannot hold two conflicting images at the same time. If fear says, I will fail, you calmly affirm, I am succeeding now. If fear says, I will lose, you declare, I am gaining. If fear says, I am weak, you affirm, I am strong in the power of God. Over time, the new seed takes root, the old weeds dry up, and the subconscious obeys the stronger impression. I once counseled a man who was constantly afraid of losing his business. Every day he visualized bankruptcy, saw himself ruined, imagined his family in poverty. Of course, his business suffered. When I told him to reverse the picture, to begin imagining clients coming in, money flowing, success building, he resisted at first. But that feels like lying, he said. I told him, fear is the lie, not faith. You have been lying to yourself with pictures of failure. Now tell yourself the truth that the law of abundance is working for you. He began to visualize prosperity, to affirm daily, I am prospered in all my ways. Slowly, the fear weakened, the faith grew, and his business turned around. The same law that once worked against him now worked for him, because he fed it different pictures. So I ask you, what fears have you been feeding? What images have you been rehearsing in your imagination? Are you picturing disaster, or are you picturing success? Are you seeing poverty, or are you seeing wealth? Whatever you picture with feeling, the subconscious accepts and produces. Starve fear by refusing to rehearse it. Feed faith by rehearsing success. For fear is only faith in reverse, and the moment you turn it around, the law will work just as faithfully. For your good. Transition. And yet, fear is not the only subtle poison. There is one more. Perhaps quieter, but just as deadly. The poison of guilt and unworthiness. For if you secretly believe you do not deserve wealth or peace, no affirmation, no visualization, no gratitude can take root. Let us now uncover this final poison and the antidote that heals it. If fear is the poison that paralyzes the imagination, then guilt is the poison that quietly undermines all faith at its root. Fear says, something bad will happen to me. Guilt whispers, I deserve for something bad to happen to me, and though it often speaks in hushed tones, guilt is perhaps the most destructive poison of them all, for it convinces the subconscious that you are unworthy of good, unworthy of love, unworthy of wealth, unworthy even of peace. And when the subconscious accepts unworthiness as law, no affirmation can take root, no visualization can bear fruit, no gratitude can blossom fully, because the soil has been salted with self-condemnation. You may affirm wealth, but if deep down you believe you are guilty and undeserving, your subconscious will cancel it. You may visualize health, but if you secretly think illness is your punishment, the subconscious will fulfill that expectation. You may give thanks, but if you feel ashamed of wanting more, the subconscious will close the channel of supply. Murphy often said that people fail to prosper, not because the law does not work, but because they sabotage themselves with feelings of guilt and inferiority. A man may affirm, "I am successful," but if his inner voice whispers, "You don't deserve success," then the subconscious hears the whisper more loudly than the words. A woman may visualize a happy home, but if she secretly feels she has sinned beyond forgiveness, the subconscious will reproduce loneliness instead of love. This is the great tragedy of guilt. It blocks the flow of abundance, not because abundance is withheld, but because the channel is closed from within. I once knew a man who had lived recklessly in his youth. He carried shame for mistakes he had made, and though outwardly he tried to move on, inwardly he believed he did not deserve happiness. Every relationship failed, every business collapsed, not because he lacked ability, but because his subconscious was carrying out the hidden command, "I am guilty. I must be punished." When he learned the truth, I told him, "You must forgive yourself. You must accept that God has already forgiven you." The law of life does not hold grudges, it responds to what you believe. If you believe you are condemned, life will condemn you. But if you believe you are forgiven, life will set you free. He began to affirm daily, "I forgive myself completely. I am free. I am worthy. God's love fills me and prospers me now." At first, the old guilt resisted, but day by day, the words sank deeper. Slowly, his life changed. His relationships healed. His business flourished. The poison of guilt was replaced with the antidote of love. Here is the why. Guilt poisons prosperity because it convinces the subconscious that good is forbidden, that blessing is undeserved. Here is the what. The antidote to guilt is love, self-love, divine love, forgiveness freely given and freely received. And here is the how. Daily, you must affirm your worth. Speak aloud, "I am worthy of love, I am worthy of wealth, I am worthy of peace. God's love fills me now." Visualize yourself radiant, smiling, embraced by light, and feel that you are forgiven, free, accepted. Each time guilt rises, replace it with love. Each time the voice of condemnation speaks, answer it with the voice of grace. Over time, the subconscious will accept the new truth, and once it does, the floodgates of abundance will open. So I ask you, have you been holding guilt in your heart? Have you been secretly believing that your past disqualifies you from your future? Have you been rehearsing shame when you could be rehearsing love? Release it now. Forgive yourself. For the law of life does not punish, it responds. And the moment you declare yourself worthy, the law begins to produce blessings without limit. Transition. And now that we have seen envy, resentment, fear, and guilt for what they are, poisons that choke the soil, we can finally clear them away. The soil of your mind is clean, ready, fertile. So, what happens when you apply the 30-day practice daily, faithfully, with no poisons to block the growth? Let us now explore the rhythm of the 30-day practice in action. The way you begin your day sets the tone for everything that follows. Most people do not realize that the first few minutes after waking are among the most powerful of the entire day. Because in those moments your subconscious is still open, still impressionable, still carrying the residue of the drowsy state. What you feed it in that window, it will carry into every interaction, every decision, every response. Yet what do most people do? They grab their phone, they check the news, they fill their mind with fear, conflict, worry, and distraction. And then they wonder why the day feels heavy, chaotic, and fruitless. But you, my friend, must learn to use those sacred first moments differently. You must seize them as your opportunity to reset, to plant seeds of wealth, health, peace, and joy before the noise of the world has a chance to intrude. This is what I call the morning reset. And if you practice it daily for 30 days, you will see your entire life begin to shift. Think of the morning as the rudder of the ship. Set it in the right direction, and the whole voyage is guided smoothly. Set it in the wrong direction, and no amount of effort later in the day can fully correct the course. That is why the morning reset is not optional, it is foundational. Even 5 minutes of conscious affirmation and visualization in the morning can outweigh hours of scattered, anxious thought later. You are training your subconscious, giving it its instructions, setting its course, and once set, the subconscious will carry it out faithfully all day long. Here is the why. The subconscious mind is most open when you first wake. The conscious gatekeeper has not yet fully re-engaged, so impressions sink in deeply. Here is the what. Instead of giving your subconscious worry, you must give it wealth. Instead of giving it fear, you must give it faith. Instead of giving it complaint, you must give it gratitude. And here is the how. As soon as you wake, before you speak to anyone, before you look at a screen, take a few moments to close your eyes, breathe deeply, and repeat your affirmation. Keep it simple. Today, I am prospered in all my ways. Today, wealth flows to me. Today, I am at peace. Today, I give and receive love. Say it slowly, with feeling, until you can sense the truth of it. Then picture your day unfolding exactly as you wish. See yourself calm, confident, successful. Feel gratitude as though it is already done. Carry that feeling into your morning routine, and you will notice the difference almost immediately. I once knew a man who told me, "My mornings are chaos. The alarm rings. I rush. I worry. I dread the day." And indeed, his life reflected that chaos. When I told him to take just 5 minutes for a morning reset, he scoffed. What difference can 5 minutes make? But reluctantly he tried. He began by affirming, "I am calm, I am confident, I am prospered today." He visualized himself handling his work with ease. He gave thanks for opportunities that were already his. Within a few weeks, he reported that his days felt smoother, his stress had lessened, and even unexpected opportunities had begun to appear. The outer world was following the new inner command. The 5 minutes had become the rudder of his entire day. So I say to you, do not neglect the rags. Morning reset. Do not let your first act be one of worry or distraction. Begin with faith. Begin with vision. Begin with gratitude. For what you impress upon your subconscious in the morning will echo throughout the day, and if you do this faithfully for 30 days, you will build a rhythm that will carry you for a lifetime. Transition. And just as the way you begin your day determines its course, so too does the way you end it. The evening is not the time to collapse into sleep with worry and regret. It is the time to plant new seeds for the subconscious to work on all night long. Let us now turn to the evening impressions. Just as the morning hours serve as the rudder for the day ahead, the evening hours serve as the gateway for the night, and what you give your mind in those final minutes before sleep is the very substance your subconscious will work on for hours while your body rests. Most people squander this sacred time. They collapse into bed filled with worry about bills, replaying arguments from the day, fretting over tomorrow's tasks, or distracting themselves with noise and images from the world. Then they wonder why they wake anxious, heavy, weary. But the truth is this: the subconscious never sleeps. While your conscious mind rests, the subconscious continues faithfully to carry out the impressions you last gave it. If those impressions are fear, resentment, or lack, then the subconscious will magnify them all night long. But if those impressions are faith, gratitude, peace, and abundance, then the subconscious will magnify those instead, and you will wake refreshed, strengthened, and aligned with the law of prosperity. Think of the evening as planting time. A farmer does not toss weeds into his soil at the end of the day and expect a harvest of wheat in the morning. He plants the seeds he desires, covers them gently, and lets the earth work on them in the darkness. So must you plant your seeds in the subconscious before sleep. Your affirmations, your visualizations, your gratitude, these are the seeds. The drowsy state is the fertile soil, and the night hours are the silent incubation, when the subconscious takes your seeds and begins to bring them into form. This is why Murphy insisted, that the last 5 minutes before sleep are the most important of your entire day. Here is the WHY. The conscious mind, with all its doubts and arguments, grows quiet as you drift towards sleep. The subconscious stands open, undefended, ready to receive. Here is the what. You must give it only what you want: multiplied images of peace, words of faith, feelings of gratitude. And here is the how. As you lie in bed, close your eyes, and speak your affirmation slowly. I am blessed, I am wealthy, I am loved, I am at peace. Say it until the words blend into feeling. Then, picture your desire as already complete. See yourself in the home you long for, at peace in the relationship you seek, radiant in the health you desire. Do not picture it far off, picture it now. Live in the end. Then, whisper thanks. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let your last conscious act be gratitude. Drift into sleep with that vibration, and your subconscious will work all night to make it so. I once counseled a woman who said her nights were filled with terror. She would lie awake imagining accidents, disasters, losses. Her subconscious was being fed poison nightly, and her days reflected it: constant anxiety, endless struggle. When I told her to replace the pictures, to give her mind a new script before sleep, she hesitated, but she tried. Each night she began to affirm, I rest in peace. I live in abundance. I am guided and protected. She pictured herself surrounded by light, safe, calm, free. She gave thanks until her heart softened. Within weeks, her sleep deepened, her mornings grew brighter, and her life began to change. What happened? Not magic, not chance, but law. The subconscious had been given new seeds, and the harvest began. So I ask you, what are you feeding your mind at night? Are you planting weeds of worry, or are you planting flowers of faith? Are you rehearsing bitterness, or are you rehearsing gratitude? For whatever you give your mind in those sacred moments before sleep, your subconscious will magnify. Give it fear, and fear will grow. Give it faith, and faith will grow. And if you do this faithfully for 30 nights, you will discover a peace that no circumstance can shake. Transition. And just as morning and evening set the bookends of your day, so too must you carry the practice with you throughout the hours in between. It is not enough to begin and end well. You must walk in gratitude as you live. Let us now explore gratitude in motion. Gratitude is not only a practice for the morning and the evening, it is a practice for the whole day. It is not something you visit once or twice, and then forget. It is an atmosphere you carry with you, a rhythm that becomes as natural as breathing. Gratitude in motion means that as you walk, as you work, as you speak, as you live, you are constantly sending forth the vibration of thanksgiving, silently, quietly, inwardly declaring, thank you, thank you, thank you. This is not forced, not mechanical, not a burden. It is a gentle awareness, a constant recognition that life itself is a gift, that abundance is flowing even when you cannot see it, that blessings are on their way even before they arrive. And when you live this way, the subconscious receives a steady stream of impressions: abundance, peace, joy, sufficiency. Those impressions, repeated all day long, deepen into conviction, and conviction becomes reality. Most people live the opposite way. They walk through their day rehearsing complaints. They mutter under their breath about traffic, about bills, about people. Each complaint is an affirmation of lack. Each sigh of frustration is a seed of disappointment. And because the subconscious does not argue, it accepts those complaints as law and reproduces them. That is why the man who complains of poverty often remains poor. That is why the woman who complains of loneliness often remains alone. They are rehearsing lack in motion, and the law is carrying out their orders. But when you reverse this, when you practice gratitude in motion, the opposite occurs. You walk in blessing, you speak in blessing, you think in blessing, and blessings multiply. Murphy often said that gratitude is the law of increase. Whatever you give thanks for grows. Thank for health, and health strengthens. Thank for wealth, and wealth multiplies. Thank for peace, and peace deepens. Gratitude is not simply appreciation for what has happened, it is recognition that the source of all good is within you, always flowing, always abundant. And when you live in this recognition, lack dissolves, fear weakens, doors open, and opportunities appear, because the subconscious is tuned to abundance instead of scarcity. Here is the why. Gratitude in motion works because it creates a continuous stream of positive impressions for the subconscious, not just at isolated times. Here is the what. Gratitude must become a habit, a way of thinking, a background hum that runs all day long. And here is the how. Practice it silently, inwardly, without effort. As you walk, whisper, "Thank you." As you eat, say quietly, "Thank you." As you pay a bill, affirm, "Thank you that more supply is flowing." As you face a challenge, say, "Thank you that the answer is already here." In this way, gratitude becomes not a task but a lifestyle. I once knew a man who transformed his entire outlook simply by carrying a silent thank you throughout his day. At first, he set reminders on his phone to pause every hour and give thanks. Soon, it became second nature. Instead of grumbling about delays, he gave thanks for extra time to think. Instead of worrying over expenses, he gave thanks that the money he needed was already on its way. Within months, he reported that his anxiety had dissolved, opportunities had increased, and even his relationships had softened. The outer was simply reflecting the inner atmosphere of gratitude. So I say to you, make gratitude your constant companion. Let it be the music in the background of your day. When you feel fear, answer it with thanks. When you feel lack, answer it with thanks. When you feel doubt, answer it with thanks. For gratitude in motion keeps the soil of the subconscious rich and fertile, ready at every moment to produce abundance. Transition. And yet, gratitude alone is not enough if resentment lingers in the heart. For even as you give thanks, hidden bitterness can choke the flow. That is why daily forgiveness is essential, a ritual of release that clears the soil each day. Let us now explore the forgiveness ritual. Gratitude may fill the soil of the subconscious with light, but if there are weeds of resentment still rooted deep in the heart, they will choke out the new growth before it can fully bloom. That is why forgiveness is not just a noble virtue, not just a suggestion for the pious, but a practical necessity for anyone who desires prosperity. Forgiveness is the daily cleansing of the soil, the clearing away of poisons that would otherwise corrupt the harvest. And just as you would not allow yesterday's trash to accumulate in your home, so you must not allow yesterday's bitterness to accumulate in your mind. Each day, you must release, you must let go, you must forgive not for the sake of the one who wronged you, but for your own freedom, for your own peace, for your own prosperity. Murphy often said that resentment binds you to the very person or situation you resent. If you replay an injury over and over, you are tying yourself to it with cords of bitterness. And because the subconscious obeys whatever you dwell on, it will reproduce similar injuries again and again. This is why some people find themselves betrayed repeatedly, criticized repeatedly, mistreated repeatedly, not because fate is cruel, but because their subconscious is carrying out the program of resentment. Forgiveness cuts the cord. Forgiveness dissolves the tie. Forgiveness declares to the subconscious, "This has no more power over me." And once the subconscious accepts that, life begins to move forward freely. Here is the why. Forgiveness is essential because it clears the subconscious of negative impressions. Without it, affirmations are blocked, visualizations are tainted, gratitude is weakened. Here is the what. Forgiveness is not excusing the wrong, or pretending it never happened. Forgiveness is releasing the emotional charge, letting go of the bitterness, blessing and moving on. And here is the how. Each evening, before sleep, take a moment to review your day. If you find resentment, do not carry it into the night. Instead, close your eyes and say, "I fully and freely forgive everyone, and I go free." Peace, love, and joy are mine now. Picture the person you resent surrounded by light, smiling, blessed, free. See yourself free as well. Repeat this until the feeling of release begins to grow. even if only a little at first. Persist daily, and soon the resentment will dissolve. I once knew a businessman who carried resentment toward a former partner who had cheated him. Every time he thought of this man, his body tensed, his mind burned with anger. And every time he tried to affirm prosperity, a voice within whispered, "But what about him?" His subconscious was blocked by bitterness. When I told him to begin a forgiveness ritual, he resisted. "He doesn't deserve it," he said. I replied, "You are not forgiving for him, you are forgiving for you. You are freeing yourself from the poison." He began reluctantly, visualizing his former partner blessed, prosperous, and at peace. At first, the resentment flared up, but he persisted. Slowly, the bitterness lost its grip. Soon after, his business flourished, new opportunities opened, and his own peace returned. Forgiveness had unlocked the flow. So I ask you, who are you still holding in your heart with resentment? Whose name still makes your chest tighten, your jaw clench, your spirit heavy? Whoever it is, release them tonight. Forgive them not because they earned it, not because they asked for it, but because you deserve freedom. Say the words, imagine the release, bless them, and go free. For as long as you hold them, you hold yourself. But the moment you forgive, you open the channel, and prosperity, love, and joy can flow unhindered. Transition. And when the heart is cleared of resentment and filled with forgiveness, then you are free to walk in a higher vibration, the vibration of expectancy. For prosperity does not come to those who merely wish, it comes to those who expect. Let us now explore the expectancy walk. Once the heart is cleansed through forgiveness, once gratitude has become your atmosphere, once affirmation and visualization have been planted faithfully, morning and evening, you must then carry yourself through the day with expectancy. Expectancy is more than hope. Hope looks to the future and says, maybe someday. Expectancy looks to the present and says, it is already mine, and it is unfolding now. Hope is a wish. Expectancy is faith in motion. It is the quiet assurance that the law is working, that the seed you planted is sprouting, that the harvest is inevitable. And when you walk in this vibration, the subconscious accepts it as truth and begins to align every circumstance, every encounter, every opportunity to match it. Think of how a farmer behaves once he has planted his field. He does not wander the rows every day in doubt, saying, perhaps nothing will grow, perhaps the seed is dead. No, he expects the harvest. He waters, he tends, he works, but all the while, he knows in his heart that the crop is coming. His expectancy guides his actions, shapes his decisions, sustains his patience. So must you walk through your days, not wondering if your affirmations are working, not doubting if your visualizations are real, not hesitating if gratitude means anything, but knowing that the law is faithful, that the subconscious is working, that abundance is already on the way. Here is the WHY. Expectancy is the bridge between inner practice and outer result. Without expectancy, affirmations are hollow, visualizations are daydreams, gratitude is words only. Expectancy infuses them with conviction. It tells the subconscious, this is not pretend, this is real. This is mine now. Here is the what. You must walk, speak, think, and act as though your desire is already fulfilled. And here is the how. Begin each task with the quiet thought, this is leading me closer to my good. When you pay a bill, expect more money to flow. When you meet someone, expect the right connection to appear. When you face a challenge, expect a solution to be revealed. Train yourself to meet each moment with expectancy, and soon life will mirror it back to you in ways you cannot deny. I once knew a young woman who practiced affirmations diligently, but she always spoke them with doubt. She said, I am successful. But then she looked around at her circumstances and sighed, but I don't see it. Her words were contradicted by her expectancy, and so her results were delayed. When she learned to shift her attitude, to walk each day with the thought, it is working now, my good is on the way, I expect success today, everything began to change. She carried herself with more confidence. Opportunities seemed to appear out of nowhere. and her affirmations took on new power. The difference was not in the words, but in the expectancy behind them. So I say to you, begin to walk in expectancy. When you leave your home, expect blessings. When you sit down to work, expect inspiration. When you speak with others, expect goodwill. Expectation is faith made visible. It is the energy that tells the subconscious to keep producing, to keep aligning, to keep unfolding the good you have planted. And when expectancy becomes your daily walk, prosperity becomes your daily experience. Transition. And as you walk in expectancy, you will soon begin to notice the subtle signs, the inner calm, the gentle nudges, the synchronicities that prove the law is working. To strengthen your faith and measure your growth, you must learn to track these signs. Let us now turn to the practice of tracking progress. Now, as you practice the formula faithfully, affirmations in the morning, visualizations at night, gratitude in motion, forgiveness as a daily cleansing, expectancy as your walk, you will begin to notice subtle shifts. They may not always appear first in the outer world, but they will begin within, as feelings, impressions, nudges, small changes in thought and attitude. And if you are not careful, you may dismiss them, you may overlook them, you may even forget them. That is why it is vital to track your progress, to record the signs, to measure the growth, so that your faith may be strengthened and your persistence rewarded. Tracking progress is not about forcing results, it is about recognizing them, celebrating them, and giving thanks for them, which in turn multiplies them. Think of the gardener who watches his field after planting. He knows that the great harvest will take time, but he also knows to look for the small signs, the sprout breaking through the soil, the green shoot reaching toward the sundae. These are not the full harvest, but they are proof that the law is working, that the seed is alive, that growth is happening. And when he sees these signs, he rejoices, for he knows the rest is certain. So it must be with you. When you notice yourself calmer than before, when you hear yourself speaking more positively, when you feel gratitude rising naturally, instead of being forced, these are sprouts, proofs that the subconscious is shifting. Record them. Give thanks for them, for they are the first fruits of a greater harvest. Here is the WHY. Tracking progress strengthens faith. The conscious mind is quick to doubt, quick to say, nothing is happening. But when you keep a record, when you write down the signs, the synchronicities, the moments of peace, you can look back and see the growth, and that evidence silences doubt. Here is the what. Tracking means writing, noticing, paying attention to the shifts within and without. And here is the how. Keep a simple journal. Each day, record any signs of change. Did you feel calmer today? Write it down. Did you receive an unexpected kindness? Write it down. Did a small opportunity open? Write it down. Did you catch yourself replacing fear with faith more easily? Write it down. These may seem small, but they are proof that the soil has changed and the harvest is near. I once guided a man who said, "I've been practicing for weeks, but I see nothing." I asked him, "Do you feel any different inside?" He paused. "Well, yes, I feel a little calmer. I don't panic the way I used to." I said, "Write that down. That is progress." The next week, he told me, "I had the sudden idea to call an old friend, and that led to a new opportunity." I said, "Write it down. That is progress." Soon, his journal was filled with signs, and as he read them back, his faith grew, his persistence deepened, and his results multiplied. The signs had been there all along, he only needed to notice them. So I say to you, do not despise small beginnings, do not ignore the first fruits, write them down, give thanks for them, celebrate them. For the subconscious works by degrees, by steady growth, by subtle shifts that soon become great changes. And when you track your progress, you align yourself with the law of increase, which says, "To him that hath shall more be given." The more you notice, the more you receive. Transition. And as you practice faithfully, forgive daily, walk in expectancy, and track your progress, you will soon begin to see undeniable evidence that the law is working not just within, but without. These signs of reprogramming will appear as inner calm, intuitive nudges, synchronicities, and outward increase. Let us now move into the final section, recognizing the change. When you begin to practice the spiritual conditioning formula, faithfully morning affirmations, evening visualizations, gratitude in motion, forgiveness as release, expectancy as your walk, you will soon begin to notice what I call the first fruits. These are the earliest signs that the soil of your subconscious has been changed, the first blossoms that prove the harvest is on its way. Do not dismiss them because they are small, for small beginnings are the surest evidence of great outcomes. Just as a farmer rejoices when he sees the first green shoot pushing through the soil, for he knows the harvest is certain, so must you rejoice in the earliest signs of inner change. They may not look like riches in your bank account yet, or complete healing in your body, or every prayer answered outwardly, but they are proofs that the law is working within, and once the inner is transformed, the outer cannot resist aligning with it. What are these first fruits? The first and most common is an inner peace, where before there was constant worry. You may find yourself calmer in situations that once made you anxious. Where once you would have spiraled into fear, now you pause, breathe, and feel a quiet assurance rising within you. This peace is not nothing, it is everything. It is the first evidence that the subconscious has begun to accept faith instead of fear, gratitude instead of complaint, expectancy instead of doubt. Another first fruit is joy, without cause, a lightness in the heart that cannot be explained by outer circumstances. You may wake with a smile. You may feel gratitude for no reason. You may sense that something good is on its way. This is not mere mood. It is vibration, the subconscious shifting, the law moving in your favor. Here is the WHY. The first fruits appear inwardly because the subconscious must change within before the outer world can reflect it. Here is the what. Peace, joy, calm, lightness, confidence, these are the signs to look for. And here is the how. You must recognize them, celebrate them, and give thanks for them, for whatever you give thanks for multiplies. If you dismiss them, you weaken your faith. If you rejoice in them, you strengthen it. I once spoke with a man who said, "I have practiced for weeks, but nothing has happened." I asked him, "Have you noticed any difference in how you feel?" He paused and said, "Well, I am less anxious. I don't panic the way I used to. I feel more hopeful." I smiled and said, "That is not nothing, that is everything, that is the first fruit. Rejoice in it, and the rest will come." Within months, his financial situation shifted, his health improved, and his relationships healed. But the change began with peace in the heart, joy in the spirit. The outer followed the inner as it always does. So I say to you, do not wait until the harvest is full before you rejoice. Rejoice at the first fruits. Celebrate the peace, the calm, the joy, the expectancy. Write them down. Give thanks. For these are the signs that the subconscious has accepted the new program, and once accepted, the law will bring it into form. Transition. And as the inner peace deepens, another sign will appear: intuitive nudges, gentle promptings, sudden ideas. These are not random. They are the voice of the subconscious guiding you toward your good. Let us now uncover these intuitive nudges and how to follow them. Once the first fruits of inner peace and quiet joy begin to appear, the next sign of reprogramming is what I call intuitive nudges. These are the gentle promptings, the sudden ideas, the inner whispers that rise unbidden in your mind, pointing you in a direction you might not have considered before. They are not loud, they are not forceful, they are not accompanied by fear. They are quiet, gentle, persistent, and often surprising. And yet, when you follow them, you discover that they lead to opportunities, connections, solutions, and blessings that your conscious mind could never have arranged on its own. This is the subconscious at work, guiding you toward the harvest of the seeds you have planted. Think of it this way. When you affirm wealth, visualize prosperity, give thanks as though it is done, and walk in expectancy, the subconscious begins arranging the path. But it cannot drag you forward, it must guide you. And the way it guides is through nudges, ideas, hunches, flashes of inspiration. You may suddenly think, I should call this person. You may feel drawn to go to a certain place. You may wake with an idea for a project, a solution to a problem, or a new way of seeing an old situation. These are not random thoughts. They are the subconscious responding to your command, showing you the way forward. Here is the WHY. The subconscious mind is connected to the infinite intelligence of life. It sees farther than your conscious mind. It knows paths you cannot yet see. It arranges circumstances beyond your control. When it accepts your new belief, it begins to open doors. But because it cannot speak in words, it communicates through impressions, feelings, and ideas. Here is the what. Intuitive nudges are the language of the subconscious guiding you to the fulfillment of your desire. And here is the how. You must learn to listen and to act. When a thought comes that feels peaceful, constructive, aligned with your good, do not dismiss it. Follow it, test it, act on it. Often, the simple act of following one nudge will open the door to the next, and the next, until the path is clear. I once knew a man who was practicing affirmations for prosperity. Every day he declared, "Wealth flows to me now." One morning, he woke with a sudden thought, "Call your old acquaintance." At first, he brushed it aside, it seemed irrelevant. But the thought persisted, gentle, but steady. Finally, he acted. That call led to a conversation, which led to a partnership, which led to a business that prospered him greatly. He told me later, the idea seemed so small at the time, but it changed everything. That is how intuitive nudges work. Small, gentle, often easily ignored, but filled with power if followed. So, I say to you, do not expect the subconscious to shout. Do not wait for a booming voice or a grand revelation. The law works quietly, subtly, naturally. Train yourself to notice the nudges, to honor the gentle whispers, to trust the small ideas, and most importantly, act on them. For faith without action is dead. The subconscious may give you the blueprint, but you must build. It may hand you the seed, but you must plant. It may open the door, but you must walk through. When you do, you will discover that life itself is cooperating with you, guiding you step by step into abundance. Transition. And as you begin to follow these intuitive nudges, you will notice something even more remarkable. The outer world itself begins to rearrange. People, circumstances, events line up in ways you could never have planned. These are synchronicities. The third great sign of reprogramming. Let us now explore this wonder. As you begin to follow the gentle nudges of intuition, another sign will soon appear, and it is one of the most exciting proofs that the law is working. It is synchronicity, the alignment of outer events in ways that seem too perfect, too timely, too precise to be explained by chance. You may call them coincidences, but once you begin to notice how often they occur, once you see how directly they connect to your inner practice, you will realize that they are not coincidences at all. They are the law of the subconscious manifesting in the world around you. Synchronicity is the universe arranging itself to fulfill the new blueprint you have given it. It is the meeting of inner cause with outer effect, the silent orchestration of people, places, and events in harmony with your desire. Think of the person who affirms daily, "I am prospered in all my ways." One afternoon he feels the nudge to visit a certain cafe, though he cannot explain why. He goes, and there he meets someone who becomes a valuable partner or client. Was it random? No. The subconscious, having accepted the belief of prosperity, guided him to the right place at the right time, and life provided the connection. Or think of the woman who visualizes health every night, giving thanks for her body renewed. The next week, she happens to read an article or hear a conversation that gives her exactly the information she needs to change her habits and restore her vitality. Was it luck? No. It was synchronicity, the subconscious, arranging outer events to support the inner command. Here is the why. Synchronicities occur because the subconscious is not isolated, it is connected to the infinite intelligence that governs all life. When you impress it with a new belief, it begins to move not only within you but also around you, drawing to you the people, resources, and circumstances needed to fulfill your desire. Here is the what. Synchronicities are the outer signs of inner alignment, the visible evidence that the law is at work. And here is the how. You must recognize them, honor them, and act on them. When you notice life arranging itself in your favor, do not dismiss it as chance. Give thanks. Follow the thread. Step through the door. Each synchronicity is an invitation to move deeper into your harvest. I once counseled a woman who practiced affirmations for love. She visualized herself in a happy relationship. She affirmed, I am loved. I am cherished. I am worthy. Soon after, she missed a train she normally caught. Annoyed, she boarded the next one. There, she sat beside a man she had never met, and in time, that man became her husband. She laughed later and said, it felt like fate. But it was not fate, it was synchronicity. The subconscious had arranged circumstances to bring her desire into being. So I say to you, as you walk this path, begin to notice the alignments. A door opens just when you need it. A phone call comes at the perfect time. An opportunity presents itself when you least expect it. These are not accidents, they are the law in operation. They are the subconscious carrying out your new program. And the more you notice them, the more they multiply, for attention is water to the seed. Transition. And when the synchronicities grow so frequent that you cannot deny them, the final sign will appear. Outward increase. The inner shift has become so strong that the outer world must reflect it in undeniable, tangible results. Money in your hands, health in your body, peace in your home. Let us now explore this outward increase. And now we come to the final sign, the one most people look for first, though it is always the last to appear, the outward increase. For once the inner has shifted, once peace has replaced anxiety, once gratitude has replaced complaint, once expectancy has replaced doubt, once forgiveness has released the past, and faith has become your daily walk, the outer world cannot help but align. The law demands it. The subconscious, having accepted a new blueprint, must reproduce it in form, and so, what begins as inner calm and subtle synchronicities will eventually show itself in undeniable, tangible results. You will see money begin to flow where once there was lack. You will see health restored where once there was weakness. You will see relationships heal, opportunities multiply, doors open that were once closed. Outward increase is the natural, inevitable harvest of inward change. Think of it like the planting of a tree. For a long time, the growth is hidden underground, where roots stretch, strengthen, and establish themselves. Then, slowly, the trunk pushes through the soil, branches extend, leaves unfurl. At first, it seems small compared to the time and care you invested. But then, as seasons pass, the tree becomes strong, fruitful, undeniable. So it is with the subconscious. The roots of change grow unseen at first, in peace, in nudges, in synchronicities, but once the roots are strong, the fruit must appear. Outward increase is the fruit of your inner work. And when it comes, it often comes in ways that feel almost miraculous. Here is the why. Outward increase appears because the subconscious governs not only your body, but also your environment. It draws to you people, resources, opportunities, and conditions that mirror your inner state. Here is the what. Increase may show itself as unexpected income, as a raise, as a new job, as a creative idea that prospers you, as improved health, as reconciled relationships. It may come suddenly, or it may unfold gradually, but it will come, for the law cannot be broken. And here is the how. Remain faithful to your practice. Do not dig up the seed to see if it is growing. Do not demand that the increase look a certain way. Trust that it is on the way. And when it appears, rejoice, give thanks, and continue the practice that brought it forth. I once counseled a man who had been struggling financially for years. He practiced the 30-day formula with great sincerity: affirmations, visualizations, gratitude, forgiveness, expectancy. For weeks, nothing seemed to happen outwardly, though inwardly he felt calmer and more confident. Then, one morning, he received a call about a contract he had bid on months earlier and forgotten. The contract was his, and it provided more income than he had earned in years. He laughed and said, "It came out of nowhere." But it did not come out of nowhere. It came out of the subconscious, faithfully carrying out the new program. So I say to you, expect outward increase. Do not wonder if it will come, it must come. The law is certain. It may arrive through channels you could never have predicted, but it will arrive. And when it does, let it strengthen your faith. Let it prove to you once and for all that the inner shapes the outer, that belief creates reality, that your subconscious is the soil of your destiny. Transition. And so, what begins as a 30-day experiment becomes a way of life. For once you taste the first fruits, once you follow the nudges, once you see the synchronicities, once you experience outward increase, you will know that the law is true, and you will never again doubt the power within you. Let us now bring all of this together in a closing that seals the truth in your heart. So now, my friend, we have journeyed together through the entire formula, step by step, layer by layer, until the picture is complete. We began with the truth that the subconscious accepts whatever is repeated with feeling, and that 30 days of faithful repetition is enough to reprogram a lifetime of old patterns. We uncovered the tools of affirmation, visualization, gratitude, and the drowsy state, each a key to impressing the subconscious with the new program. We saw how gratitude seals the prayer, how timing magnifies its power, and how layering them together creates a practice so simple that anyone can do it, and yet so powerful that no one who does it faithfully can remain unchanged. Then we exposed the poisons: envy, resentment, fear, guilt that choke the soil, and we learned how forgiveness, love, and self-worth clear the channel so prosperity can flow freely. Finally, we explored the rhythm of daily practice: morning reset, evening impressions, gratitude in motion, forgiveness as release, expectancy as your walk, and tracking your progress to strengthen faith. And we saw the signs that prove the law is working: the first fruits of peace, the intuitive nudges, the synchronicities, and finally the outward increase, the undeniable harvest of the seeds you planted. Take this into your heart now. The poverty, the lack, the fear, the endless struggle you may have carried for years were never your destiny. They were programs, suggestions, old beliefs impressed upon your subconscious, and you mistook them for truth. But now you know better. Now you have the formula. Now you have the key. For 30 days, practice faithfully. Morning and night, affirm, picture, feel gratitude, forgive daily, walk in expectancy, track the signs. Do this, and you will recondition your subconscious, and the law of life will respond. As surely as the sun rises, as surely as the seed sprouts, as surely as the tide flows. 30 days of faith can erase 30 years of struggle. So let us seal this with a living affirmation. Say it aloud with me now, not as a wish but as a declaration, not as a hope but as a law. From this day forward, I condition my mind with faith, gratitude, and love. I forgive, I release, I expect, I rejoice. In 30 days, my life is transformed. I am rich in every way now and forever. Feel these words as truth. Let them sink into your subconscious. Let them take root. Let them grow. For from this moment, the harvest has already begun. And yet, before we close, I must leave you with one more truth. Even after 30 days, even after affirmations, even after visualizations and gratitude, there is still one hidden belief that can quietly undo it all, a subtle chain of thought that works silently while you sleep, canceling your progress. Most people never see it, never name it, And so they continue to cycle back into struggle even after practicing faithfully. In my next message, I will uncover this hidden chain and show you how to break it forever. If you miss it, you may repeat the same cycle. But if you see it and release it, nothing will stop you from living in permanent abundance. So do not stop here. Do not let this 30-day journey end without knowing the final key. Click on the next teaching. Continue the journey. For you have planted the seeds today, but the harvest, the full harvest, is waiting for you, and it is rich beyond measure.